There's the third A.
Hey.
We've got a special guest in the house today. Someone we've been excited about getting on the podcast for a long time.
Yep.
Welcome, Kyle.
Hey, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We really have been talking about this one for like weeks. I think on air a little bit hinting at it, but off air, man, we've been excited to talk to you, Kyle.
Getting interesting people in with interesting stories or professions in this case is always our main goal. So we're excited to have you. Why don't you go ahead and just give us a small background of not only where you work, but also who you are and what the connection is here.
Yeah, so Kyle, I'm work in the Utah State Prison in Salt Lake. I've worked for the prison for about 12 years now, and it's been pretty exciting. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of stories.
Yeah, we did have to go through a process to make sure that, you know, the stuff that we're going to talk about on the podcast is approved and okay, but we feel like we've got some great questions. Utah Prison Department seems to be super cool about all of this, and obviously we got to be a little careful just because there are families involved and people with different situations. So
yeah,
we're super glad that you were able to and that they were supportive of it. So shout out to the prison system.
Yeah, we're definitely a public entity, so we're very transparent. That's the new chain of command. They're all about transparency. Just to protect some of the inmates, you know, I can't use names or specifics or things like that, but you know, the prison is one thing in the movies and different in real life, and so it's interesting to talk about both. But
yeah, it was interesting when we were kind of coming up with a list of potential questions to ask. I was thinking a lot about that because I wanted to kind of debunk the stuff that you would typically see, you know, in a movie or a TV series, or like Prison Break, you know, there's a TV series.
Oh, Prison Break's all real.
Yeah.
It's all real.
Well, that's reality TV, right?
Yeah, reality.
Yeah.
Actually, that is interesting. Reality TV, you said that what you're saying about, is it 60 days in?
60 days in. Right now, their newest season is Utah County, so the jail down in Spanish Fork. Well, the Utah County Jail down in Spanish Fork.
Right, got the show going on right now.
It's got the show going on right now, yeah. So,
do you know how delayed the recording is?
No, I know this season there's snow, so it has to be at least last winter.
Yeah.
sometime.
So it's already showing.
Yep.
Oh, I'm gonna get on and watch that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Until tonight, I didn't even know there was a prison in Spanish Fork.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah.
Yeah. So each county, for the most part, depending on population, is going to have a jail to kind of house their not as well behaved, and then the prison is more run by the state. So a county jail can house as few as 10 inmates up to a couple hundred. The prison now holds about 3,500.
Yeah,
oh wow.
The new prison, right?
The new prison.
So
yeah.
you worked both in the old Draper prison, and you've also worked in the Gunnison prison.
Yep.
That's a prison, right? Not a
Yep.
jail. Prison?
Yep. So Utah has two prisons, one down in Gunnison and one now in Salt Lake.
Used to be Draper.
Kyle, can you walk us through, like, how did you get interested in doing what you're doing, and maybe give us a little bit of background on like your path to get here? What were, you know, whether education or training or certifications, and then what you do in your role and how that's evolved over time.
Yeah, so my initial goal was never to get into corrections. Back in 2008, I got married, and so I had to get a big boy job real fast.
To Katie. Shout out Katie.
So in 2009, I went through the police academy, self-sponsored, so a lot of departments will put you through. But that was a time in our country's history that was a bad economic time.
Yeah.
And so everybody was going into stable jobs, which was law enforcement. So when I got in, I would apply for a job, but there would be one position for 150 applicants.
Oh, geez.
So I tried from 2009 to 2012. Your certification lasts 4 years. And so I was reaching that point where I was going to have to go through the academy all over again.
Oh, gee. How long does the academy last?
So I went at night, and so at that point it was about 7 months.
Oh gosh.
Just going at night.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
they'll do academies now that are a little quicker because you're there all day. one of the places that I had applied to had asked if I had any corrections experience. And Katie told me, well, the prison, they're hiring 40 officers. So I thought, well, I'll go in, I'll get some experience, and then I'll come back to the street. So I applied.
Yeah.
And when I applied, they said there's 400 applicants for 40 positions. So it was still fairly competitive.
400?
400. And actually, in my interview day, there was a guy that was sitting on my bench. He was from Indiana, that he had flown in
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
to apply for that spot.
So it was a nationwide thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Probably no prior experience in Utah either. Just like
Yeah.
looking for a posting, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just as a comparison, right now, officers are making like $30 an hour starting, like their first day. And I was making $16.07 was what I started. But for me, back in 2012, that was a lot more money back then.
heck yeah.
Yeah.
Even to have a job, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that was
Exactly.
such a crazy time.
Yeah. So I got the job. I got in to the academy. The academy was great. And then my very first spot in the prison was, we didn't have an actual death row, but all of the death row inmates were housed in my very first building. So it was inmates in solitary cells, so they didn't have a cellmate.
This is in Draper?
This was in Draper.
What do you mean you didn't have an actual death row? What does that mean?
So, you know, like in a lot of times in movies, they'll have a set of cells that are just for death row, like in their own building off by themselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had so few inmates on death row, we couldn't have a building just for death row
Right.
inmates, so they had to share a building.
Because Utah's not super into handing out the death penalty, right? I mean,
Yeah, so the death penalty is pretty hard to get,
yeah.
as it should be. Very serious sentence. So yeah, so I started, it was called UNA 1. So at that point, all of the buildings were named after mountain ranges. So you had UNA, you had Wasatch, you had
Oh,
Timpanogos, and buildings like that. So the UNAs was maximum security. So yeah, so my first 2-ish years was this death row
Jeez.
inmates that couldn't be around other inmates,
And you would interact with them?
and I would interact with them every day.
Yeah.
And could they not be around other inmates because of the crimes they had committed, or like simply for the fact that they were on death row, or was there already behavioral issues that caused them to be isolated, or both?
Yeah, so the death row inmates were there because they were on death row. So if you
Okay.
were on death row, that's the building that you were in. But we had 96 cells that were all single cell, so we could house 96 inmates. And there was only 9 on death row at the time. So the rest of the cells were filled with inmates that maybe liked to fight or
Oh, gosh.
had mental health issues that needed to be by themselves.
Yeah.
And so we would communicate, but it was a tough building. It's a hard building because you can't really come out of your cell all the time.
Tough for the inmate.
For the inmates.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything the officers would do for the inmates, if they wanted to go to the shower, the officers would restrain the inmates at their cell. They'd open the door, they'd escort them over to the shower, lock the shower door, take the restraints off, then the inmate could shower.
Yeah. So it's just you're watched all the time.
So very labor intensive, and that's the way that it was back in Draper. Now the prison, they've got a little bit more freedom. So even those same type of inmates, they come out of their cell and they can use the phone, they can use the shower on their own, but it's still isolated, but
Yeah.
they have a little bit more freedom
And
with
you
this
said,
new design.
And you said some of them could take 10, 15 years before the sentence is carried out because they can appeal.
Like
And
the
then
appeals process?
Yeah,
until
so-
the appeals are done, then it happens.
Yeah, so for inmates on death row, the law in Utah is, as long as you have an appeal, you can continue to appeal.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but the way that we house inmates in Utah is a little different as well. So inmates are not housed based on the crime that they have. They're housed based on their behavior. And we've changed this within the last decade. Right now, we have death row inmates that are in general population that are well behaved, they have jobs, and as long as they continue to behave, then they can continue to enjoy the benefits of a little bit more freedom, more sunshine, more air. And inmates that can't get along with others, then they're locked down a little bit longer.
Yeah. So if you have two guys who are just being not being cooperative, being a problem, you will put them in the same group? They might be in the same cell or same...
We have a safety system, so if two inmates just don't get along, they can file what's called a safety. Like, if I'm around this inmate, there's going to be problems.
Yeah.
And there's different levels. One is I can't live in the same cell, but I can be in the same section and we'll be fine. I can't be cellmates with this individual. The second level is I can't even live in the same section as this individual because my life is in danger.
Oh, okay.
The next level is I can't even be in the same building as this person because we can pass
as soon as they see me
in the halls. Yeah. And the last one is it's a security threat group, so different gangs. Like, I can't be anywhere around this group, anybody in that group, or else I'm in trouble.
Because you're,
Gotcha.
Okay. So you were in general population. This is so fascinating that it's going to be hard not to just go off on tangents all the time.
Yeah.
There's so many cool things.
Yeah.
So you were in
death
row.
Yep.
For 2 years.
For 2 years. And then from there, I went to Unit 2. And that's not, you don't go from 1 to 2, and then it's just the way that my career ended up happening. And that second unit was a security threat group unit, so it was still maximum security. It's where a lot of the gangs that like to fight, they have a little bit more freedom than UN1. They can have cellmates, they can come out of their cell in the section, they can use the showers and phones and things like that. But if they were in general population, then they'd assault other inmates or things like that. And they can work out of that building. They can behave to a certain point and get back to general population.
And what we see in TV in 30 days or 60 days in, that's general population, right?
Yeah, so a lot of it is going to be general population. Some of it's going to be a little bit more isolated. But one of the things you do see is a receiving and orientation process. So all the inmates, they come in, they meet with a caseworker, and they go through their crime. We have to take their crime into account, their family. So there's a lot of factors that we take into account to house certain individuals. And then we really do the best we can at housing them in appropriate areas.
Yeah. Okay.
For the safety of them and other inmates and staff.
Which out of the two did you like more, death row or with the higher security?
So with every area I've been in, I've learned something.
For sure, yeah.
So my first area, you really have to learn how to talk to people. It's really easy, as an officer, if we need to handle a situation, we can go in, we can use force all day, every day. But it's the officers that can go in and they can communicate with inmates. They can talk to inmates, figure out what the real issue is, because some of it is just isolation, Some of it's pure boredom. And so if you can talk and communicate, you can handle most problems.
Yeah.
But
I felt like if I worked in the prison, they'd ask me to be like the prison lunch lady. The guy who greets them at the lunch table when they walk through the line. Hello, would you like some more beans?
So that's a new thing at the new prison. So at the old prison in Draper, all of the meals were sent to the units, and everybody ate
in their cell?
Ate in their cell, and then we would send the trays back. General population now, we have actual kitchens, so they can go in, they can get their tray, and it's kind of like a lunch hall.
Serve up the sloppy Joe.
Serve up the sloppy Joe.
I made him extra sloppy.
Nice. Okay, so then you went to, so what was your third area?
So after Unit 2, I promoted to sergeant.
Yeah, buddy.
And they decided to give me a break, and they moved me to the forensic mental health facility. There's a lot of inmates that deal with mental issues, but Olympus was for the seriously mentally ill. So we dealt with inmates in
They
mental.
would, like, claim insanity, like, type of thing?
No, they have real serious mental conditions, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, lots of different diagnoses, but we were the security. And so one of the things in that area that I really relied on was communication with our medical staff. Because medical staff has a job, we have a job, but I really need medical to help me out a lot of times, and they can't do their job unless we're there, and so it's collaborating.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
All in Draper still, right?
All in Draper.
Okay.
So, and this was all graveyard shifts for the first
yeah.
7 years of my career. So, working holidays and birthdays and all that fun stuff. And then I had the great opportunity of moving to training and training all the new officers. One, it was great to have a day shift again.
Yeah, I bet.
But it was great with the first 4 months an officer's career is the academy. That's where they learn what type of officer they want to be. It's the most important, in my opinion, of an officer's career. And so I got to be a part of that. So I did that for 3 years.
That was at Slick, though, right?
Yeah, Salt Lake Community College.
Okay.
Is where we would, in Sandy, is where we would have our classes. Yeah, so 10 classes, probably close to 400 cadets over 3 years.
Nice, dude.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these cadets could potentially go to any number of law enforcement agencies or cities or the state or UHP, right? Utah Highway Patrol.
Yeah. So
Or the prison, or
so-
was it just focused on corrections?
So it's just corrections.
Okay.
So we as a state entity would run the academy. So most of the cadets would be for the prison. But we would also run for free the academy for county, because county needs officers as well. So we would teach corrections to the county officers as well.
Got it.
Okay, so and then you headed down to Gunnison, right?
Yeah, so I did training for 3 years, and I had an opportunity to promote to lieutenant, which is rare. And the opening that they had was in Gunnison, and talked to my beautiful wife, and we decided to take the opportunity, promoted to down in Gunnison. And so I commuted. It was 100 miles one way every day.
Oh,
Wow.
did you drive?
I drove every day. There was a few times within that year and a half I was down there that I actually stayed down there. And that's only because the snow was so bad, I couldn't make it back.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. I loved the time down there in Gunnison, the people in Gunnison.
Didn't they do a movie there? Actually, that was a long time. They did a movie in Gunnison, at the Gunnison prison. Familiar
Really?
with
I don't know.
I'll have to show you.
Con Air.
No, it was like
Nick Cage.
It was a low budget. I'll show you later.
Yeah.
Con Air.
Con Air.
Yeah. Yeah, so after I was down there for about a year and a half and had an opportunity to come back to Salt Lake, a little closer to home.
Yeah.
So I went on graveyards for 2 months as a lieutenant, which is rare, but it was the only spot available.
It was a way to get back closer.
It was
to
a
home.
way to get back, and loved it. And now, currently, I'm over the Utah Correctional Industries, UCI. They handle all of the state resources like license plates, any of the license plates, whether it's motorcycles, ATVs.
That's such a stereotype. Doing
Yeah.
license plates in prison. That's
Yeah.
Right.
So all of them are made there. Any of the furniture that if you go to the Capitol and you walk in, and the seats that are in there, the judges stand,
Wow.
the bench, all of that is made in UCI. So we cover a lot. We work programming, and programming is something that gives inmates something to do in prison other than just sit in their cell and watch TV all day.
Like computer programming?
Yeah, so we actually have IT programs. So Davis Technical Institute.
Shout out Davis Technical Institute.
Yeah, they run a lot of great programs. We have an auto shop in there, so they can take cars apart. I mean, we have the keys.
Yeah.
So they can't just drive them out, But no, we have a culinary institute so they can learn how to cook. We have welding. We have a maintenance so they learn how to do plumbing or electrical or so many different trades that, because we realize that inmates are going to have the opportunity to get out.
Yeah.
The vast majority are, and we want them to be successful once they get back out.
Yeah. On that same line of thinking, can you walk us through kind of what a typical day? I imagine that this varies from, the different areas within the prison, what it might look like. But, maybe briefly with each area, what is a day in the life of an inmate at the Utah State Prison? What does that look like?
Yeah, so
maybe in general population.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have to be fairly rigid with time schedules because of the number of inmates that we have.
Are you overpopulated right now?
No, we're about where we need to be as far as inmate population goes, but I mean, you never want it to get higher. We want people to stay out of prison, but
yeah.
Right now, so in the morning, we'll wake them up and we'll turn on the lights. They get up if they want. But we have what we call pill line. So the inmates have an opportunity to come. They'll see a nurse if they have certain medications, like morning medications. The nurse will give them medications in the morning. And then we have breakfast movement. So all of the inmates in a certain section will move to the dining hall. They'll eat together and then move back.
Do you have to eat breakfast?
No, you don't have to.
You don't have to.
Yeah, you can choose not to eat. And there's a lot of inmates, they buy food on commissary.
Yeah. Commissary is money given to them by outside individuals, right?
Yeah, so the commissary is extra food, extra clothes, extra things that they want, like radios or TVs or things that aren't necessarily provided, just extra things. So a lot of times they'll buy food and soda and comfort items.
Yeah.
And so if they don't want to go to breakfast one day, then they don't have to. They have a schedule of the meals, so they know what's going to be in the dining hall that day.
Okay.
So if they say, no, it's tuna casserole today, I'm just going to stay and
pass on tuna casserole.
Yeah. But yeah, we have specific movements, so a certain time of the day, inmates can go to certain things, like the infirmary is open for medical appointments, so inmates can go and see the doctor, they can see the dentist, they can go and see whoever they need to see. We have jobs, so the building that I'm over has a majority of the jobs. They also we have inmates working in the culinary, but we have certain times of the day that they can move.
Right.
And that's to control the amount of movement throughout the prison.
And so they'll do those things throughout the day, dinner, then back in the cells.
Yeah. And then we have specific times throughout the day that we'll count inmates, because we need to be accountable to the people of Utah and make sure that we have all of the inmates that we're supposed to have. Certain times every single day, we'll go around and visually verify that we have every single inmate that we're supposed to have.
That makes sense. Yep. Are they typically very active? Like, you always, the stereotype would be like, these guys are just getting ripped all day because they're just working out, or, in a white collar prison, they're just reading books.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, what are they doing?
So you have a wide variety. So there's some that they're very self-motivated. They want jobs. They want things to do. Like they don't want to just sit and be idle. So they'll be out doing stuff all day. They're the ones that mostly come to work. You have others that they don't really want to do stuff they're supposed to, but they'll sit. We've got a big TV in the section, so some of them might watch TV. They go to the yard. We have a yard with exercise equipment that they can go and use. So they might sit in their cell. We have tablets that they can use, and so they get music on the tablets and things like that. But
jeez. Is the new prison that much better than the old one?
There are things in the new prison that are great. We're the newest prison, so the technology in this prison is amazing.
Yeah.
But with any new facility, there's going to be growing pains. a lot of the staff that grew with Draper tried to run the new prison like Draper was run, but it's a whole different infrastructure, different layout, so you can't really run it the same way.
Yeah.
So there's been growing pains with both inmates and staff, but we've been open for 2 years now. And
Really? That long?
Wow. That blows my
I thought
mind.
you were going to say like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, so
Well, it all happened so fast too. Like one day I drove by the prison and it was gone.
Money,
Yeah.
dude.
You know,
yeah,
it's crazy.
Money
So the
pushing
only-
for that Draper land.
yeah. So the only thing that's still there is the chapel.
I saw that. Yeah.
And that has the bricks from the original prison.
Oh.
So they're trying to preserve that.
So they're going to preserve that
Okay.
as kind of like a museum.
Got it.
Was that a chapel that people in the prison attended?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have church, we have visiting, we have stuff all day long for inmates to go and do.
Do you have random people who just want to visit with a random inmate?
Yes,
Yeah.
but to be able to visit with an inmate, you have to get on their visiting list.
Oh, okay.
And the inmate has to ask for them, and you have to be approved. It's to protect the inmates. It's to protect the public, and same thing with phone calls. Inmates can't just call whoever they want. They have certain phone numbers
Okay.
of certain individuals that they can call, and then outside of that, it says this is not an approved number.
Yeah, because I have a few pen pals.
I was
That
gonna
like to go
say,
see.
seems like there's a reason you asked that.
It's fascinating to me. I mean,
Yeah.
going in and just talking and hearing their experiences. I did it when I was a senior in high school. I was in sociology.
Yeah.
And sociology, we traveled to Colorado Maximum Facility Prison, and they had like 5 inmates, I think, that we met with, who were like approved to meet with all the kids and tell certain stories. It was funny because one of them, I remember, had been in prison for like 20 years, and he had gotten magazines, and he was talking about how much he loves cars, and he's like, I'm getting out in like 2 or 3 years, and he's like, and my dream is to go out and see a PT Cruiser. And I remember when he said that, I go, really? A PT Cruiser? And he was like, yeah. And I was like,
Yeah, there's a lot of the technology that just kind of passes them by.
The last
Oh,
car
yeah.
they saw was like
Yeah.
a Chevelle or something like
Well,
that.
Yeah.
one of the guys said he hadn't seen a tree in like, I don't know,
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah.
And another guy said he had seen a briefcase with a cord to a phone. He hadn't actually seen a cell phone. That was the last thing he'd seen.
Wow.
It was cool.
Yeah.
It was a cool experience. So I think
Yeah.
learning from inmates and what it's like and where their heads at, interesting.
Well, and I think that, the media and movies and TV don't do prisons or jails any favors.
Yeah.
I was just watching The Goonies the other day, and at the very beginning, you have an inmate that is able to escape from the jail by pretending to hang himself, and the officer just walks in and that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
That just
Right.
doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That's a great movie.
Love The Goonies.
Yeah.
So good. How often do you find that there's some kind of a dangerous situation going on? I imagine that can happen in any number of ways.
Yeah, so you get 3,500 individuals, and you put them in a confined space. There's going to be issues.
That's a high school. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've worked for the Department of Corrections for 12 years, and there's only been a handful of times that I've ever not felt safe, and that has nothing to do with the infrastructure. It's when I'm communicating with an inmate, I can tell increased frustration from that individual, and I understand I've got to get restraints on this individual for my safety, for his safety, for other people's safety, and it all comes back to, can I communicate in a way that he's going to allow me to put handcuffs on him so we can get him to a safe spot so he can calm down. But other than that, inmates tend to, have disagreements and fight, but generally it's not directed at us at staff. So I generally don't feel unsafe.
That's good.
That is
Yeah.
good to hear. That's great.
I think in the very beginning, you have the first time you walk through those doors, you hear the doors close behind you.
Yeah.
Your heart stops a little bit. But once you start talking to them and you realize these are individuals that some of them just made mistakes and they're trying to pay for their time.
Yeah.
Gives you a different perspective on how you treat them. And we have a lot of great staff that work with them day in and day out, getting them to programs, getting them to succeed. We just had Davis Tech had a graduation. So they have high school graduation. They have
sweet.
Some college.
Man, Davis Tech is getting it done, huh?
Yeah.
Second shout out to Davis Tech.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. I mean, you would assume that just a lot of development and progress in an individual's life would just come to a screaming halt once they start serving a prison sentence, right? But it's good to hear that there's these programs in place that will help, you can further education or learn new skills, whatever it is, and prepare them to be back out on the streets. I'm curious, statistically, like how often does somebody, serve their time, they go back out to real life, and then end up back in prison?
So I don't know the specific number. I know it's over half. And there's a multitude of reasons for that. A lot of them return to the environment that they committed the crime in the first place. So the same family, the same friends, and so they return to some of those same habits and behaviors.
What about the whole free room and board concept?
Yeah, so there are some that they are really institutionalized. So they have a space that they're fed 3 times a day.
Yeah.
They have clothes, they have soap and all the things that they really need to survive, medications, things like that. And so some of them have a hard time existing in society, and so they come back to the prison to try and feel a sense of normalness for them. And so that's what we try and kind of weed out or trying to unlearn is that behavior and realize, listen, there's a lot of resources once you get out that will help you. We've got the Other Side Academy. It's restaurants all over. I don't know if you guys have been to True Religion down in Orem.
No.
It's a restaurant?
So it's a restaurant. It's only open for breakfast, but it's one of 10 different businesses that this guy runs that it's part of this academy. It gives ex-prison inmates a chance to cook or do certain things. So some are restaurants, some are other businesses, but there's so many resources available for inmates that they think they're by themselves, but really there's a lot available to them.
We did that in one of the companies I worked in a while back. We would hire, they were in halfway houses essentially.
Yeah.
Come out and they'd need to get a job, and we ran a contact center. So I've seen The Office. I don't remember, in The Office when they hired the inmate, they talk about a state bonus or something. I didn't get nothing. I don't remember anything. Maybe I didn't apply for it, but we didn't get anything.
No, there's not that I'm aware of anyway.
Yeah.
There's no state bonus for
The Office. What liars.
Those liars.
You think you can learn anything from TV, but really, liars.
It's all a lie.
Yeah. Hey, so we are longer than we usually go, and that's okay. When we have guests, we're excited that you're here and you took the time. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Even though we're paying you so much money.
I know, it's great.
All you got to do is call our moms and they'll Venmo you some money.
It's the best part-time job ever.
Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mom. But, so I think one of the things, obviously being sensitive to the subjects or stories, but just some of your favorite stories that you've heard or like to tell or things that people find interesting about your job, the place you are.
Yeah. So I could tell stories for days, and maybe I'll come back and share some more stories. But
Yeah.
I'll share one because it's kind of funny, and it was when I was working in the forensic mental health facility. I had an inmate that came to me, and he said he was crying, and he said, I just got a phone call that my uncle died, and I need to call my dad. And that's one of the things that we do is we provide a compassionate phone call to anybody that's lost a loved one, because for the most part, they have to pay for their own phone calls. But if there's a death in the family, then we want them to be able to have contact with family. However, we try and verify the information. So I didn't have a way of verifying the information and thought, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? I'll just give him a phone call. So he calls home. I get the phone number, and one of the things we do is we'll say, is this so-and-so? Yeah. I've got your son here. He wanted to talk to you. And he's like, I heard Uncle so-and-so died. No. And so in my head, I'm panicked. I'm like, wait, so nobody has passed away? Everybody's okay? Yeah, everybody's great here. You doing okay, buddy? Yeah, I'm good. All right, sorry to bother you. And hung up. And turned out he had gotten some information that he had heard from somebody that was hearing voices that gave him the information. And
they're pretty relieved then to hear that his uncle's still alive.
Yeah. So talked to him a little bit and checked back with him later in the night. And but yeah, it's one of the things that we are scared of a lot is people with mental illness, because it's something we don't understand.
Yeah.
Right. And especially those who, are talking to people that aren't there or seeing things that aren't there. And I had another individual that came out and said that inmates are saying this about me. And so I said, okay, wait right here. I had him in a secure area. And so I go back into the section. I'm like, is anybody saying any of this? No, he just heard something on TV and he started screaming. So I went back and I just asked him, are you hearing any voices other than mine? Yeah. All right, well, what are they telling you? And he gets real quiet and he turns to the side and he's having a conversation, but not with me. And he's like, well, they're telling me not to trust you. And in my head, I'm like, well, this is a dangerous situation for me.
Right.
Sure.
So I said, well, what do you think? You and I have worked together quite a bit. And he looks down and he's like, well, I think I can trust you. Good. Let's go with that. But yeah, we're dealing with inmates a lot of times at their lowest levels. And so having a little bit of compassion and being able to work through some of these issues with and for them is crucial.
Well, it sounds like the state has really tried to provide resources, helpful resources, or not just put them in a hole and leave them, right?
Right.
So that's fantastic. Overall, it sounds like you really enjoy your job. You really enjoy what you've chosen to do, working corrections. Seems like a pretty good place to be.
Yeah, so initially I wanted to go out on the road and came into corrections, and I love working with individuals, that maybe have made mistakes that I understand are going to return and maybe be my neighbor. I've run into inmates on the street. Wow. And a lot of times it's a fist bump and thanks for your help and okay, let's
and then you scurry away.
Yeah. But we'll run into them at Walmart, Smith's, track station, anywhere. And that's what we want. We want people to get out and be productive and be happy.
Are most people that are in there from Utah?
Yeah.
Okay. So
for the most part.
Gotcha.
We'll have prison or inmates from maybe other states. For example, maybe we'll have somebody that committed a crime and it's really heinous in that state, and so they're not safe in that state, so we'll house them. And we do the same thing if we have some in our state that aren't going to be safe to be housed in our facility, then maybe we'll ask another state like New Mexico or Arizona or something like that.
Yeah, makes sense.
For any of those who might be interested in a career in corrections, what advice would you have for them and how do they get started?
Yeah, so probably the easiest thing to do is statejobs.utah.gov. We're always hiring correctional officers, and there's going to be a phone number that they can call and talk to a recruiter. And there's a PT test, so a physical training test, so they're going to have to be able to run. They're going to have to be able to take tests, so they're going to have to be able to read and write in English. And we'll have some scenarios that they're going to have to, realistic type scenarios that we'll put them in that maybe make them a little uncomfortable, but it will prepare them. We help them all along the way to help them be officers in the academy.
And so the barrier to entry right now is not like it was.
No.
Yeah.
So it's still about a 4-month process in the academy, and then once you exit the academy, you have an on-the-job. It's about 6-7 weeks that you're in the prison. You're moving around. You're spending time in different units and figuring out how they run. Because there's a lot of stuff that goes on throughout the day, and so you have to learn the processes.
Well, huge shout out to Kyle, because one of the reasons we started chatting again was because I had a friend that applied for a job there and is now going through the academy, and
Oh, there you go.
going to crush it.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Going into corrections.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
so far, they've loved it. So, super exciting.
Yeah.
My last question, are you able to reveal where Sirius Black is located within the prison?
Serious.
I'm just
Where is Azkaban?
Where?
Yeah.
Oh,
That was the
Azkaban.
nerdiest
Yeah.
joke
Yeah.
of this podcast.
That was such.
We do not have Dementors.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering
Yeah.
if they go through the academy as well,
They do not.
learning to suck souls out of.
Yeah.
I still
The
like
joy.
I still like the question, though.
Yeah, it was perfect.
Well, thanks, Kyle. This has been really interesting. Like, I didn't have any idea about most of this stuff. This was great.
Well, thanks for having me on. No, I love your guys' podcast. I think I have conversations with you guys while you guys are talking on your podcast. So this is fun to be on this side now.
Heck yeah, man.
Yeah.
This we say it almost every week, as you've heard. Like, we want to be introduced to people.
Yeah.
We have a couple other people that we're working on to come in, but man, I mean, your position and what you do is so fascinating.
Super unique. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great.
And congratulations on you said 12 years?
12 years.
12
Yeah.
years. That's awesome, man.
That is great.
Yeah, it's flown by.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, until next time, thanks again.
Thanks for joining. We'll see you next time.
All right, buddy. Thanks, Kyle.
Yep. Thanks, guys.